What's going on there, folks? Good morning, good afternoon. It's Monday. A lot of folks have the day off. It is June 20th, 2022, about 10:47 a.m. California time. Latest quake shows a 1.6 earthquake here along the west coast. Looks like right around the Bay Area, Northern California region. We did see some activity kind of ramp up into the Gulf of California again last night. There's going to be some of this earthquake activity down south here. With a couple of threes kicking up in the mix and some twos. We'll check that out here in just a second. First, I want to go over a little article here put out by the USGS Volcanoes. I did share this on my Facebook page this morning, but make sure you go over there and like the Facebook Earthmaster Facebook page while you're, if you do have Facebook, while you're there. This article put out by the USGS today, talking about how the devastating floods last week could have an effect on seismic activity and also hydrothermal activity here around the Yellowstone National Park. Got to remember, all this water seeps into the ground, and of course, a lot of heat, right? Runoff water soaking into the ground could create a little effect on the geyser system, and also some seismic activity. So this was all caused during June 10th, June 13th time frame from an atmospheric river event. It's a system of warm and extremely wet air that usually originates in the tropics. It did dump more than 2 to 3 inches of rainfall combined with warm overnight temperatures. It did melt quite a bit of snow that had been around. They did have quite a bit of snow in the springtime that, of course, it's not going to melt unless you get the warmer temperatures. Anyway, it was a huge event, right? Look at that. Some of these pictures putting out here showed quite a bit of erosion and whatnot throughout the rivers and the canyons and the streams. Looks like the flood gauge at Yellowstone River reached 14 feet. And that's about 2.5 feet higher than the previous record flood event back in 1918. So looking at a major historic event, almost unprecedented. And they're talking about here, this is the article that I kind of want to cover. Will the historic flooding cause any changes in seismic, hydrothermal, or volcanic activity in Yellowstone National Park? So according to these folks, probably not immediately, and possibly not at all. Most of the rainfall and snow melt from the recent flooding ended up in the rivers, draining the area, but some of the water percolated into the ground. There are general correlations across the western USA between seasonal precipitation and small earthquakes caused by changes in surface loading from snow and water melt and groundwater recharge. But analysis of overall seismicity in Yellowstone does not show a strong connection between heavy rainfall and strong earthquakes or earthquake swarms. That's what they state. But I think with this type of event, we could see some swarms going on. Well, that's just my analysis. I've seen it happen in the past. These guys say no. Earthquake activity that's related to increasing subsurface pore pressure is mostly related to water that ascends from depth rather than percolating downward from the surface. For example, the 2017 Maple Creek earthquake swarm, I remember that one. Huge. Lasted almost all summer. The second largest ever recorded in Yellowstone National Park was probably driven by water rising from deep reservoirs, increasing pore pressure and causing slip on existing faults. Hydrothermal explosions are another possibility due to all this rainfall. It occurs when groundwater flashes to steam beneath the surface. Such explosions are also unlikely to result from the recent flooding. They're stating this, but we don't know 100% certain, do we? This could definitely affect Yellowstone in general. Last week's flooding in Yellowstone was truly unprecedented. We'll keep a close eye on it. I want to jump over here to this 2017 Maple Creek earthquake swarm real quick. There was one. That's right. This one was huge. How many earthquakes were there? There was thousands. I know there was thousands in that earthquake swarm. I don't know if they're I don't know, more than 3 months. Yeah, it was a 3-month long swarm. I don't see any total tally numbers of the earthquakes, but yeah, it was definitely a huge event. I remember that back then, folks. Pretty crazy, to say the least. So we'll keep an eye on it. Definitely, here in the coming weeks, that groundwater, water goes in there, right? It's got to get in there and deep in there to possibly produce some, swarms on local faults here in the area of Yellowstone. We'll definitely watch it pretty closely. Right now, Yellowstone National Park seismograph overview. Looks like, let me make sure, is this the most recent? Yes. Looks like a little spotty activity over here around the Maple Creek region. The area we're just looking at, far as that swarm goes. The 2017 Maple Creek earthquake swarm, getting a little bit of activity around here. Although this area does see typical movement. This is almost always where we see the earthquake swarms. Occasionally over here around the Yellowstone Lake and sometimes down south. But it seems like the majority occur over here around the Hebgen Lake area and also the Maple Creek region. But right now, a little activity showing up here around the Maple Creek and the Holmes Hill area, specifically within the last few hours. Excuse me. I got a drink with me this time, so we'll make sure we keep that handy just in case. So there's probably a good 10 or maybe 15 earthquakes within this area over the last few hours. Nothing big. These are all small microquakes. It is showing up on the Maple Creek area. You can see these earthquakes there as well. This very strong signature of those quakes. But it looks to be, epicenter looks to be right around the Holmes Hill area. But notice they're not really showing up across the park. So these are very small microquakes, probably under the 1.0 threshold, maybe 1.5. But as far as the rest of the Yellowstone National Park out here, it looks pretty quiet in terms of any type of seismic activity. And I don't believe the USGS is picking up on any of this activity yet. Let's see what they got here. Nope. Nothing going on here. That's the all magnitudes map as well. So, all right, let's check out the West Coast. So we have been seeing quite a bit of, I can't say odd, but increasing earthquake activity up here through the Gulf of California. Last night kind of stretched up here into the Imperial Fault System, and also seen an earthquake here that struck just off the Brawley seismic zone, just shy of the southern segment of the San Andreas Fault near the Salton Sea. Also over here around Salton City, seen a little bit of activity as well. So seismic activity regionally as a whole has been increasing here in Southern California and right around the San Andreas Fault System. Nothing on it specifically, but we don't really need nothing on it to possibly trigger something. All it would take is some swarms around the area, a little bit more pressure shifting to this region, and it could pop this thing. But for now, it's quiet. But just notice this increase in activity around the San Andreas Fault System here. And this is just a handful of some of the quakes that struck over the last few days within this region. Of course, we had quite a few fours down here along the Baja California region. And now we're just seeing that migration northward. So something to watch pretty closely. Aside from that area, getting some movement around the Riverside area, stretching up towards the San Andreas Fault. Also one earthquake up here around Lancaster. It looks like a 1.3. Around the, let's go back to 2.5 and above. Around the Long Valley supervolcano, getting a little swarm of earthquake activity, and it's above 2.5. The largest, at least, appear to be a couple threes here. 3.0, two of them within the last, when was that? 1500 UTC time. So we're looking at a couple hours ago, about 3 hours ago or so, in this area of the Long Valley supervolcano. Now it just sits just to the west of the caldera. Let's see if there's any microquakes in that mix within the last. It looks like we've had a couple small microquakes within the last couple hours there, 1.2 and a 1.0. But that's a pretty good sized swarm when you look at all the quakes that have taken place here in the last 24 hours, 29 earthquakes. Again, just shy of the Long Valley supervolcano. Now, this is very shallow earthquake activity. If you look at the depth of these earthquakes, they're all in the negative, and that is in adjustment to the elevation difference out here. So negative, meaning that these things are really shallow, super shallow at the surface. And that goes for the majority of all of them. I'm not seeing anything that's deep in this area. They're all in the negative. So it's definitely something to watch pretty closely. As far as fault systems go, obviously right around the caldera there's going to be numerous fault systems. This here is called the Hilton Creek fault zone. Let's go ahead and check out the specifics on it. Stand by for just a second. Let me bring up the Hilton Creek, right? A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I wonder if they have that on here. Hilton Creek fault zone. Okay. I'm not seeing it. Hidden Springs. I don't see the Hilton though. That's kind of odd. You guys see that? So they don't cover a lot of them. I mean, the site, Southern California Caltech website, does cover quite a bit of earthquake fault systems, but I'm definitely not seeing that one specifically in it. So we'll look into that maybe a little bit later, but it kind of looks like that's where all this activity is occurring at, very shallow. But then again, Long Valley supervolcano sits right there. Let's go ahead and check out the GPS measurements around Long Valley. I haven't checked them out in quite a while. It's been a while since we've had any type of swarming going on down there in the area of Long Valley. But we'll see if we can bring these guys up here. A little spotty, glitchy map scrolling right there. It wasn't good. Not for sure what's going on with that, but all right, so let's see where we're at here. The swarm itself is hitting right about roughly within this area, right about here. I kind of want to see what we got for well, you know what, for vertical displacement. And it looks like since about 2012 had some pretty good displacement vertically in the Long Valley supervolcano area. Now this is just a western crest, which also has a lot to do with the plate dynamics in the area, right? You got the North American Pacific plate boundary, the San Andreas Fault to the west here of the Long Valley supervolcano. So that does play a part in the uplift of the mountains in that area. But it looks like since about 2012, there's definitely been a pretty good uptick in vertical displacement there. Although 2022, notice, see if you guys can see that, the dots are registering kind of a downtrend here. It looks like that's over the last month. Let me check out a different GPS station here and see see what we got. That's the one I just checked. Stand by for just a second here. These guys, not for sure what this is about. That thing doesn't even show a displacement. Kind of odd. But specifically here in the Caldera region, Long Valley supervolcano, there's that vertical displacement as well, and that's directly into the Long Valley supervolcano caldera right about 2012, and it's been increasing. You guys see that? I'm not for sure about the prior activity prior to 2008, as far if these guys go through little cycles or not, as far as the up and downs go. But definitely some displacement there over the last few years. Looks like it may be either dwindling or just staying roughly about the same here in 2022 as far as that vertical displacement goes. So definitely keep an eye on it. These GPS stations are kind of fun to look at because it gives you an idea of land movement, where it's headed to, and the whole dynamics of of the pressure increases out here. A lot of times when you see this little major drop right there, those could be, and I read it somewhere in here, antenna adjustment or instrument movement, like moving it somewhere else or adjusting it, because a lot of times those sharp declines like that are a good sign of some type of man-made adjustment, but not all the time. But looking at this map here, still shows that gradual vertical uplift in this area of Long Valley supervolcano. So we'll keep an eye on it. It's been, like I say, it's been a while since we've had any swarms, any type of major swarms around here. Now this is just a kind of a minor swarm at best right now, 30 earthquakes. But the depth of these earthquakes is what I'm kind of keying in on. They're all negative, which means very shallow surface activity here in this region. As far as satellite view goes, see what we got. Is that an airport down there? Kind of looks like one, right? Yeah, it's an airport of some sort. Not super familiar with this area as far as what's down there, aside from the volcanoes and whatnot. But this activity occurring just right around here at the very shallow surface levels. Looking at some the topography of the land here, you can see some old, a lot of old flows out here. So we'll keep an eye on it, folks. Again, I think this has a lot to do with the overall increase in pressure out here along the western coast. I mean, we're lighting up all over the place from the northern part of California down south. And of course, that also includes all the fours and whatnot we've seen down here in Gulf of California, the migration of the quakes up here. I think all this has to do with overall dynamically large-scale pressure out here along the western coast. Not a whole lot going on throughout the Pacific Northwest, but West Coast, California, definitely lighting up for sure. Ridgecrest area, seen a little bit of activity within the last hour. And aside from the Long Valley supervolcano, we're getting some movement over here around the Bay Area of California, near San Francisco, south of San Francisco. Looks like a 1.6, and low activity here near Milpitas. Looks like a 0.7. And filling in up here along the Cobb Mountain region, Calpine hydrothermal operations. A couple ones in that mix. We did see some activity up here in Oregon last night at 3.3. Now this one's pretty deep, 31 kilometers, and I think we know what sits over here to the west. That's the Cascadia subduction zone. Down dip, 31 kilometers. We haven't seen any tremor activity in the past couple days here along the Cascadia. Tremor is the not earthquake related, but it's a slow slip event, more or less like a vibrational frequency being picked up by very sensitive equipment. It's movement, but it's not a sudden jolt like earthquakes. It's not like a release of pressure. It's more or less like slowly being shoved down there underneath the North American plate. And then we kind of seen something down there today, or last night at 3.3 at 31.1 kilometers. That's down there about, it's a little upstream, I think, from the tremors. Which is a little worrisome because, of course, the further upstream you go, you run into the locked area of the Cascadia subduction zone. And we've been seeing a little odd activity taking place here within the last week around the Northern California area, southern end of the Cascadia. And also we've seen some movement here a couple days ago off the coast of Oregon, but again, down dip of the Cascadia megathrust area. And it's just, I don't know, man. I have a feeling that thing's going to be making a name for itself pretty soon. It's been 322 years. It could be another 100 years, or it could be today or tomorrow when that thing decides to go. Don't really know, but I do like to study all this information, the tremor the surface quaking that takes place. I'd like to see, well, it's going to suck when the big one hits. It's not going to be good, but I would like to review all the data and whatnot over the past years and months that I've been studying this activity in tremor, seeing what it looked like. You know, was there any telltale signs that this thing was going to go? Stuff like that. So we don't really know back in 1700, you know, what took place. Tremor activity is fairly new in monitoring. But there is definitely some earthquake activity that's popping up that I got my eyeball on. My eyeballs, I should say. I got two eyes. So definitely keeping an eye on that. Two eyes. Okay, get off the jokes. We'll see how it goes, folks. We'll keep an eye on it for sure. A couple eyes. Mount Rainier. Some microquakes up here showing up on the map. Let's go ahead and check out the tremor map here real quick. Like I mentioned, the past couple days, zip, zero, nada. Nothing showing up there on the tremor count. So Mount Rainier, check these guys out here at the Volcano. And there is one, like I mentioned, showed on the USGS map showing up there. Now I know some of these are just out of whack. The Palmer Lift one. Is this the Palmer Lift? Let me see here. I think it is. Oh, no, it's not. It's Camp Muir. Of course, this one's not found. And these other ones are kind of out of whack, I think. Yeah, wow. None of these are showing up today. What's going on? Was it this one that we had to access? I remember a couple nights ago we couldn't access any of those other ones at the top of the volcano either. And I had to go further south to access one. Okay, this one's definitely tuned good. I like to see these squiggly lines. Not overdone, but just about like this. That way you can see distant earthquake. These are S waves here from... that could be, yeah, that's the 6-pointer that struck yesterday in the Taiwan region. See those S waves kicking up here, and they last for quite a while. But this station will pick them up. It's nicely tuned. I like it. As far as earthquake activity, it would definitely pick it up if it was happening around Mount Rainier, and there's not. I think the one that they're chatting about or showing is going to be this one right here, between 11:20 and 12:20 UTC time. Let's see. Right there, 11:58. That's for the 0.9. It looks like there was a smaller one at 12:47 UTC time. 12:47. I don't see it on there. It's probably so small. But I believe this here is going to be the one, the 0.9, listed on the map, on the graph here. That looks about right. So. But aside from that, yeah, there's no, I don't see any type of, any harmonic tremor or any type of other earthquake activity at all there at Mount Rainier Volcano. Mount St Helens, I know we're kind of bouncing all over the place, right? But it's Monday. Mount St Helens, where are you? There you are. Went over that like 3 or 4 times before I seen it. Seismograph stations here are normally operational, and they're pretty easy to access and be able to view any type of earthquake activity that's occurring at the Mount St. Helens volcano in Washington. And well, it looks like there's one here within the last hour or two, and a couple other smaller ones. It looks like very small microquakes, but no major movement to report there at Mount St. Helens. All right, so moving on the earthquake part of things. The USGS showing some activity up through Montana, a little slight movement. The rest of the country, aside from a little activity in Oklahoma, Hennessy area, looks like a couple small earthquakes out there in the, I'm sure it's the fields. See, gas and oil fields. They're all over the place. Kind of looks like that's where some of this activity is occurring today. Got a couple of them within just a few feet of them, of these earthquakes. So obviously that's some oil field and fracking and injection well operations going on out there. New Madrid zone does have a little earthquake activity as well today, 1.4 and a 1.8 in Missouri. And the New Madrid zone sits here within this region. Very seismically active zone, a major hazard area, I should say. Looking at the U.S. hazard map, shows those 2 earthquakes within the center part of it, right smack dab in there. Of course, it's not abnormal, not abnormal to get a couple microquakes in the area. Did have one more earthquake here in the Georgia area, a 2.1 near. Is that going to be called Groovetown or Grovetown? Probably Grovetown, right? Georgia, beautiful state. I don't know if I've ever visited down there. I don't think I have. I kind of want to. I love the greenery. This area did see a 3.9 just south of where the 2.1 struck overnight. So little activity away from there. But it also struck right next to the one that struck a few days prior to the 3.9. So just a little bit of movement going on there in the eastern part of the country. Puerto Rico, some spotty activity today. South America did see some movement overnight. Most of this activity here from yesterday. South Sandwich Islands showing a little bit of movement onto the southern end of the trench here. 5.2 at 77.3 kilometers. Check out, it's just been an active day overnight, and yesterday been really busy. This area, now, go to 2.5 and above. EMSC models were showing some activity yesterday and last night here along the Pahala, Hawaii region, southeastern region of Hawaii, the Big Island. They were showing some 4s kicking off here. The USGS has dropped those down to the 3 level, but that's some pretty good activity kicking up here in the southeastern region. It's getting a little bit higher in the terms of magnitude. Most of the time these are well below 2.5, and the majority of them are. But yesterday, like I mentioned, we've seen some upper 3s kicking off here. So a little bit of sign of some increase going on along the southeastern region of Hawaii. Some movement out here. 2.7 kicked up late last night. Haven't seen any further activity there though. Let's see. Hawaii's been pretty, or Alaska's been pretty active up here throughout the Cook Inlet up into Anchorage area. Seen a couple of earthquakes there. North of Anchorage. Yeah, it looks pretty active overall. Of course, the looks like these guys downgraded it. Look at that. It stood for a 6.0 for a long time. Here around Taiwan, it looks like it got downgraded to a 5.9. They've had a couple aftershocks in that mix. Looks like 4.9 and 5.2 and a couple other smaller ones. Some activity up here along the Kurokamachaca Trench, although this activity here was prior to the 5.9. We really haven't seen too much in terms of further movement up north, except for one 4.1 there at the southern end of the Kurokamachaca Trench, around the Japan Trench as well. So still some heightened activity along this region of the world. Indonesia area looking pretty quiet, and look at this over here around Fiji and Tonga. Just got a 4.5 here from yesterday, late last night I should say, into the Tonga Trench area. 566 kilometer deep earthquake. So pretty quiet along this area for now. West Coast lighting up like crazy overnight and continuing today. Over here around the Mediterranean Sea, we did see some activity yesterday. In fact, all of this is from yesterday, the 5.0 to the 4.6, all older movement. Mid-Atlantic Ridge, this one late last night, a 4.9 near the Georgetown area. Of course, this area has seen a little bit of swarming over the past week or so. Show you guys the last week of 4.0 and above. 7 earthquakes, and I'm sure there's more than this. Had quite a few 5s kicking up here. See that? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 of them, and a whole bunch of other 4s in the mix going on. So we're seeing that return today with a 4.9. So low activity definitely ramping up in this area. Let's see what else we got here, folks. We checked out Trimmer. Let's check out the solar weather department here real quick. I know it's something I always look forward to every day, is the sunspots. And we've got a pretty large sunspot that's growing here, 3038. Looking pretty massive in terms of their development. Looks like a possibility of an M flare, 30% chance 90% chance for a C flare, and of course 10% for an X flare. I think we got that possibility good and correct. This image right here is a little old in this chart. Kind of a little bit behind. Here's a little different view of the sunspots in terms of yeah, this one's behind. I'm not for sure why it's behind. Stand by for just a second. Let's see if I can access these. This is current solar flare threat. Well, activity, I should say. We're crackling like crazy with C flares. Haven't seen any M flares in the last couple days, but it's getting close. Definitely getting close. Let's see here. Yeah, we're definitely could see an M flare. We'll have to see how that looks. Where did my other map go here? There's a couple different views of the sun. Overall, though, I think we're looking at we're coming up on a little quiet period, I have to say. I don't want to say it, but kind of looking like that's going to be happening after these sunspots move away from Earth. Because looking at these, let's go back here, stand by for a second here, going back to solar ham. Looking back behind over here on the eastern limb, there's not a whole lot of new development kicking up, or at least rapidly intensifying. This is just a little older image. It's outdated here by a little bit. Can't see the time down here, but these guys showing a little bit older image. But there's not a whole lot of development coming around the bend, so I think we're entering into just a little bit of a quiet spell. Hopefully that won't last too long. Let's see. All right, guys, I am going to bounce out of here. I will leave this, the article, where to go? The Yellowstone article about the heavy rains and whatnot, how they could have an effect on the seismic and hydrothermal, or the geyser activity. I'll leave that in the description of this video in a link below, so if you guys want to check it out yourself and read a little bit more through it. It's definitely worth reading when it comes to Yellowstone and the unprecedented amount of rainfall they had. So we'll definitely leave that link in there for you guys. Alrighty, have a good day, folks. We will chat to you a little bit later on. Peace out.